So, LEGO Minifigures Online. It's a massively multiplayer game being developed by Funcom for release in the second half of 2014. It's being developed as a PC game, downloadable client, but also to be playable in a browser. So you'll be able to just go to the web page, click play, and off you go. It's also being developed for Android and iOS tablets, and all of these players will be able to play together. So we're playing on our beta server. We've started a friends and family beta in July that's been running throughout the summer. So we're actually connected to that server today. So everything that you see here is live gameplay. We'll be having more and more betas as we get closer to our launch, expanding it and letting more people in. As you can see, it's a top-down isometric game, a very traditional game style. You click to move, the left mouse button. We have several themed worlds. In the video, you got a look at the pirate world, the space world. Today, we're going to show you a little glimpse of the mythology world. So we start moving up this mountain. We're going to make our way to a dungeon. You see that there's projectiles. The DJ is throwing his record. It's bouncing off walls. It's bouncing off the monsters. The ogre is throwing boulders. These are all projectiles that can be dodged. It's an action-adventure game, so it needs to be a lot of dodging and activity when you're doing the fighting. Each minifigure has two abilities, and these abilities are unique to that minifigure. They're mapped to the left mouse button and the right mouse button. By having movement on the left mouse button and an ability on the left mouse button, even the youngest players can sit down and just get into it. But you also notice that here there are 3 minifigure portraits. So there'll be close to 100 minifigures in the game when we launch. And at any point, at any given time, the player can select 3 of them to have at the ready. Now those 3 minifigures you can freely switch between on the fly. So the youngest players, they'll go around, they'll smash things and have fun using the left mouse button. But more advanced players will quickly realize that they actually have access to 6 abilities. And the minifigures that you choose to put into this group of 3 and the abilities that they bring along will be an important factor for you when you're playing the game. So right now we're using the Cyclops, I see, and the Cyclops is my favorite minifigure because he's really fun to use. And I use him a lot when we're doing our reviews internally. So if I'm reviewing playfields, that's the guy I'm usually playing. And this is a true story. I was sitting in a meeting room one day, and we have loads of minifigures. They come in these little bags. And I was in the meeting, and I was very bored, and I was just sitting there opening minifigure bags. And I happened to open one and get the Cyclops. It's this little guy here. And I'm not kidding, I was actually really happy. I was suddenly in a good mood the rest of the day. It was such a great experience. And we want our players to have that experience too. So the game is based on the LEGO minifigure toy line. This is a toy line made up completely of minifigures. They have typically 3 releases a year. They come in series, and each series contains 16 minifigures. When we release in the second half of 2014, we will be releasing at the same time as a series that's been designed for the game. Our lead designer and our art director have been working very closely with LEGO to design the minifigures that will be part of that series. As I mentioned, we have the themed worlds. So each of those worlds will have a hero minifigure who will be available in the toy line. We have several other minifigures in that set that work very well with the game. And we're not just launching at the same time as that product, but when people open their minifigure bag, they'll get their minifigure and they'll get a code that they can then take to the game and enter and immediately start playing in the game with their new minifigure. So as I mentioned, we're playing on our beta server. We've got a couple other players who are going to join us. I think one of them's in Switzerland, and I think one's actually in North Carolina in the US. To get into the dungeon, we need to build this gyrocopter. There's a collection of parts there. So the Cyclops, as great as he is to use, he's not a very good builder. He's kind of dumb. So we'll switch to the DJ. He's a creative minifigure, and that typically means that he's very good at building things. Being able to build things quickly will be very important as we use building in boss fights. We also use it in PvP. And yes, we're going to have PvP, but more information on that later in the year. So now we've built our gyrocopter. We'll head up the ramp, and then that'll transport us to the forge. We will have cutscenes. Right now it's just this helpful loading screen. So the forge is a dungeon. The outdoor spaces we've just come from, that's a true open MMO outdoor area. You'll encounter dozens of other players. The dungeons are instances, they're private, they're for you and your group. Group size is up to 4. And the dungeons will scale in difficulty based on the number of players in the group. So because it's a dungeon and it's a higher challenge area, we need to think about the minifigures that we're going to bring and make sure that we're bringing a good loadout of abilities. So first off, we're going to select the roller derby girl. She's pretty tough, and importantly, she has an ability where she summons her roller derby team, and they fly into the enemies and knock them back. Next up, we're going to choose the fairy. She looks very cute and cuddly, but the fairy is actually the highest damage minifigure in the game right now. She really does a lot of damage if you know how to play her right. And lastly, we'll take the Galaxy Patrol. The Galaxy Patrol is a good mix of offense and defense. He's got a laser that bounces off walls, but he's also got a grenade that knocks the enemies up into the air. And that can be very handy if he needs to escape a tricky situation. So the Forge is a dungeon. It's inside a mountain. We're going to fight our way to the top. Now we'll be going inside the mountain, outside the mountain. We're starting in the lowland. There's trees and some greenery. As we get higher and higher, we'll get into the snow. Because we have a lot of young fans who will play this game, we know that they really like variety and they like it to come very often. So this playfield's a really good example of how we're within the same level, we're giving several different environments. I think the artists and the designers have done a really good job in the world design, bringing that to life.
As you will see as we play through the dungeon, there will be many objects that are made with Lego. And the environments are vibrant, and we try to make them as fun and interesting and varied as the minifigure lines themselves. They have a lot of personality, they have a specific set of colors that they use, and we try to recreate that as well in the environments, give them a good environment to stand on and to play on. Every single asset that you see in this dungeon that is made of Lego, like this column of stone, for example, that destructible, this bridge, and many others you will see afterwards, they are made with a tool that is called the Lego Digital Designer. It's a free tool that is made by Lego. You can get it from the Lego website, and basically allows you to use any Lego brick in existence, put them together following the Lego building system that they use to create their own sets. So everything that you see made of Lego is made with that tool. We use the tool internally to build our assets.
Yeah, and what that means, because the tool holds all the Lego building rules, all the connection points, how the bricks can snap together. So what that means is if you see it in the game and it's made of Lego, if you had the bricks, you could build it at home.
Yep. We just entered an area quest area. You saw another area quest before. Area quests are bubbles of activity that we play sometimes in some of the dungeons to break the pace or to set the pace, to change the gameplay a little bit. Some of them are monster wave events like this one with a mini boss at the end. Some of them are recreations of battles that you have to fight in. You have to smash things, you have to build things, you have to defeat enemies. But a key factor of the area quest is that we don't normally give you a very precise set of objectives or goals to complete. In most cases, we just throw you into the middle of the battle and you just play the game, destroy things, build things as you please. And all of these little activities you can do in this area will give you credit and progress to completing the quest. It's also a bit of a fuzzy progress. There's no defined number of the things you have to destroy or build. You just play the game, have fun, and then we'll give you a reward at the end if you stay in this area for a while.
In the outdoor areas, when you have one of these objectives, like let's say you get a mission or a quest to destroy harpy nests, we have a concept called soft grouping, because we always want there to be a spirit of cooperation, and we never want it to be competition of you've stolen my monster or you've taken my loot. So we have this concept called soft grouping, and what that means is, let's say that you and I are in the same area and we both have a mission to destroy harpy nests. If I see you, you're on my screen and you destroy a harpy nest, I also get credit for that harpy nest. Anytime loot drops, as you see the stars and the bricks and these things flying around, anytime that happens, that loot's been generated for me. You get your own loot. So any loot you see is yours. There's never any competition over loot. We're each getting our own piece.
By doing this, we also get rid of monster tagging, having to wait for things to respawn to be able to complete your quest objectives and all these traditional MMO elements. Yeah.
I mean, it is an MMO, but we are going to have a lot of younger players. So we're going to take a lot of steps to make sure that it's light, it's fun, and they don't have to wait around for things. And always fostering that spirit of play and cooperation that Lego is known for.
As you see, In many occasions, we put smashes all over the place. There will be litter on the ground, lots of Lego pieces. You break down lots of things. Sometimes we use destructibles to hide access to secret areas. Like there might be a wall that has a little crack on it, and then you can destroy it, and then it opens a corridor that leads somewhere else. Sometimes we just put things to destroy just for fun, and sometimes we put our treasure rooms. The way we give loot out of bosses, we put a treasure room after the boss encounter, and then you destroy the chest and the things in the treasure room to pick the stuff. Yeah.
And because as much as Lego is about building, it's also about breaking things apart. This is sort of a mini treasure room. This is a good example of what Oscar was just talking about. You've got the chest in there, and you come in the room and you start breaking things. So the stars that you see us collecting are akin to experience. So stars are a currency. You collect them, and then you use those to level up your minifigures, kind of like skill points. The thing about the stars, though, is, let's say right now we're using the fairy, but the stars that I've been collecting, I can use to level up any minifigure that I get. So let's say that I really love the Cyclops, but I've not managed to find him in the game yet. I've got a load of stars. Then, woohoo, I have that moment. I find my Cyclops. I can just start spending my stars right away and go ahead and level him up. Leveling up the minifigures will make their abilities more powerful. It will unlock new effects on their abilities. And in general, you know, it raises the power level for them.
We also, since the minifigures all have unique abilities, and there are so many minifigures in the game, there is a very heavy collection element. That's exactly what we're trying to achieve with this system. So we reward those players that try to get as many minifigures as they can, that find the combinations of minifigures they like the most, that create their kind of battle team that they like to bring to certain situations. And we reinforce this also with the mechanics that we put on the right-click abilities.
Take note of these platforms that we're on right now. So we're getting very close to the top of the dungeon. And we're actually spiraling around the outside. And as we go higher, you'll start to see these platforms from on high. You'll see even like the bricks that we've left there.
As we go higher in the spire also, you will see that the style of the monster encounters have changed a little bit. Before you could see the monsters in the screen, they would come at you. Here they are landing from the sides, they're ambushing you, landing behind you to cut your retreat. And well, you're just trying to escalate the mechanics of the encounters as we go deeper into the dungeon.
And we even have Lego clouds. And I'm not promising that there's going to be a cloud level, but there might be a hidden cloud level. So now we're climbing, and we're getting closer to the end. And if we look down, we'll start to see those platforms we were on earlier. We really like to use verticality and scale in the game to give that perspective and to make you feel like you're really on an epic adventure. Our art director loves lava, so I think he would put lava in his house at home if he could. So we've got these grand lava waterfalls. So this is the last encounter before we enter the boss fight. Now, one thing you'll notice as we dispatch these last enemies is that the camera is actually changing here. So where previously it was kind of down and to the side, now it's directly behind the player. This is a visual cue that will let players know that they're about to fight a boss. We also have these green barriers. Anytime you see one of those, it signifies a commitment point. Once you cross it, it'll change color, it'll turn red, and you can't retreat. So going through means I'm ready to take on the fight. So let's go through. So straight away, you see we're going to fight this big red ogre. We've got a couple buildables in the boss room. Now building will be a core tactic in defeating every boss. It will always be part of the strategy. In this case, we're building lightning rods. So as you fight the ogre, he will start to summon orbs of lightning. These orbs of lightning do a lot of damage, and they follow the player around. So as long as the players have built the lightning rods, they can run to the lightning rod, and they will actually trap the lightning orbs, freeing the players to keep fighting the ogre. And they're coming. Here they come. So we all run to the lightning rod, and you see that they get stuck there.
This is an example of how dungeon mechanics also escalate with the number of players.
Yeah.
There's 3 lining ores because there is 3 players in this encounter.
Yeah. Other bosses in the mythology world, like Medusa, when you fight Medusa, you'll want to build the big mirror and then hide behind it at the exact moment that she's going to use her gaze attack, so you can reflect it back to her. And that's part of the strategy for defeating that boss.
We have cannons that you build to fight pirates and galleons and things like that.
So now we've defeated the boss, we've gotten the minifigure bag as loot, because just like in the real world, when you collect minifigures, they come in a bag, you don't know which one you're going to get, it's a big surprise element. There are many different ways to collect the minifigures. You can kill bosses, kill mini-bosses, but you can also earn minifigures by exploring the world, completing missions, or earning achievements. And sometimes you'll get lucky and just find one in a chest. So at this point, normally, when you're normally playing, you would hop on your gyrocopter and head out of the dungeon. But for this demo, we're actually going to teleport into another dungeon, which is the Underworld. The Underworld is the end dungeon for Mythology World. It's the home of Hades, and it features the River Styx, or the River of Souls.
Just to give you a little bit of context of what we're looking at right now. This is the very end of the mythology setting. This is the final boss of the mythology setting we're showing now. In the mythology setting, you have the Greek pantheon of gods. There's Zeus and Athena, there's Hades. Zeus and Hades are kind of like antagonists or rivals, but they have always been in some sort of balance of power. But now, recently, Hades has become much more powerful for some reason that Zeus doesn't really understand. So Zeus is asking for your help to deal with the threat of Hades. And the element that has made Hades more powerful is part of the overarching storyline that goes across the whole game and across all the different worlds and settings that we have in the game, which we won't reveal today, but you will learn more in the future. So this is the underworld, is where Hades lives. That's the river Styx. We are going down the river, and we use jump pads to traverse, to fly between these islands. Jump pads are a very powerful tool that we use a lot. It empowers us to do crazy things with level design, to play with height a lot more than we normally do, to open access to secret areas. Since you can build jump pads as well, you can build cannons that then you can use to shoot yourself into a pirate galleon and things like that. Yeah.
Imagine jump pads in
cloud level.
In the hidden cloud level. Think about that.
Yeah. So here we're fighting skeletons. Skeletons are one of the advanced types of monsters that we have in the game. Monsters, we normally keep them pretty simple on what they do individually, but with some of the monster races, we build synergetic abilities between the different types that we have. For skeletons is an example of this. There are warrior skeletons that just run at you and attack you in melee range. Sometimes they enrage and they run a little bit faster. There's archer skeletons that stay behind and shoot arrows and don't really move very much, but they will actually try to stay behind the warrior skeletons. And there is player-to-monster collision in the game, so you just kind of go through the monsters and kill the archers, right? There is also an advanced version of the archers, which are the sorcerers. They shoot fireballs, but they also can summon groups of skeletons, of warriors, to stop you and to create like a mid-shield for themselves. And there is an advanced version of the warrior as well, which they carry a big shield and a trident. And these guys can put up a bubble that absorbs a ton of damage. But there's ways to deal with this bubble. First, you can just many tools to crowd control monsters in the game, so you can stop them from using the bubble to start with. And second, you can break the bubble with another kind of special type of abilities that we have in the game as well. So we try to build these synergetic elements into most of the monster types in the game, and also between the abilities of the different minifigures. So people will think thoughtfully about the number of minifigures they bring, what they have, and how they're going to use the tool set that they have available to them.
So we're getting on towards the end of the Underworld now. And we've just triggered a dynamic encounter. So now we're gonna hit the players with a dynamic encounter of skeletons where they have an opportunity to use all the lessons we've just taught them on the way to this area. Now, we have a panel of expert players right now that are running through this, but let me tell you from experience, the first time that this happens and you're standing in the middle of this room and these invulnerable shield skeletons start coming at you, closing in, it's very, very exciting.
They can take a ton of damage.
There goes the fairy. See, the fairy, she's really tough. She lays down the pain.
One of the reasons that the fairy she does so much damage is that her left click is this shooting star, right? Then on her right click, she can summon a circle of sprites, of helpful sprites. These sprites empower her left attack. So instead of shooting 1 star, she shoots 3. But they also act as shields. So each one of the sprites absorbs 1 hit from a monster. And the shield persists if you switch to a different minifigure. So you can decide to bring the fairy to your roster of 3 minifigures just because you want to have the shield available to you. And be able to, yeah.
So now you see that the perspective has changed. We're about to go into another boss fight. So now we're going to fight Hades. And Hades is riding on the back of a Cerberus, which is a giant 3-headed dog. And you notice he's a bit different than a lot of the monsters we've been fighting. Hades is actually, in LEGO terms, what would be called a sculpted creature. But the sculpted creatures, just like the brick building, they have their own set of rules and guidelines for how you're able to build them. And our artists have been working very, very closely with LEGO to make sure that we're able to produce these monsters, and they adhere to all the LEGO building guidelines. So in this room, we've got a couple of buildables. On this side, we've got a defensive shield. The longer this fight goes on, the more damage that Hades will start to do. And you really need to have this shield on you to want to defeat him. There you see the judge. He's got his squeaky hammer out and bashing him on the head. So on the other side of the room, there's another statue. And we build that statue, it'll put a buff on us. And this buff will pulse damage in like an area of effect. So Hades, throughout the fight, periodically will start summoning minions. And you really want to keep your damage focused on Hades. So having this damage pulse on you will deal with the minions and freeing you up to fight Hades. So here you see some of the skeletons coming. And now the fairy goes into Uber mode and starts destroying. So Hades is starting to get beat down. I think he's going to go down pretty soon. Might have one last ditch effort. Yep, there he goes. And now he's down. And poor Hades, he thought he was going to take over the world, and now he's been smacked down, and he's sad, and oh look, he's crying. I'm actually a little embarrassed for him. But we try to have these light, humoristic elements because we will have younger players, and we want to keep it light and funny. So this is the end of the dungeon. We've defeated Hades, and now we're going to the treasure room. This is also the end of the presentation. So today we've shown you a little bit of the mythology world. We've shown you the Forge dungeon, the Underworld dungeon. We've talked about all the different minifigures that you can collect and their cool abilities. The game will release in the second half of 2014. PC downloadable client, but also playable in a browser. Android and iOS tablets. And thank you.